In this module, we are going to discuss Section 220 Revised Quality Management for Individual Audits. And as always, we want to be efficient and effective, follow professional standards, and document what we have done properly. Now, this section, as the other two related sections, are largely the same as they were before. There are more words, which makes things perhaps a little less clear. They repeat sections in this section, which is a new habit standard setters have of repeating other sections in the current section. I find it unclear and unhelpful. For instance, the documentation requirement just repeats the requirement from 230. So this may affect the detailed wording of forms, and if you're the person in your firm that has to devise new forms for this section, you may find you have to change a lot of words, but in substance you're not changing much. Now the section says that the engagement team is responsible, of course, and that the engagement team is led by the engagement partner, and that the team follows the system set up by the firm under SQM1. And I think that's obvious, and doing the audit will make it obvious that you've done that. It is scalable, so it applies to a firm with only one partner, a sole practitioner, versus a firm with many partners, versus a firm with many partners. It is effectively for December 31st, 2023 year ends. If you have a year end close to December 2023, or you have a one-day year end on December 2023, December the 28th, it will apply, and then if you have a December 31st year end immediately after that, it will apply again. The engagement partner is to take leadership and may delegate many things. In a large audit, in a large firm, there will, of course, by necessity, be lots of delegation. The smaller the firm, the less the amount of delegation, and the more the involvement of the leader of the engagement partner in the audit. Engagement partner is responsible for ethics, responsible overall. If matters come to the engagement partner's attention, someone has to take appropriate action. Not necessarily the engagement partner, but somebody. And before dating the report, which is the new way of saying signing the audit opinion, check that someone has checked on ethics. So there probably needs to be a checklist question on that, not necessarily signed by the partner. Engagement partner is responsible for use of resources and overall direction and supervision. I think that's probably a fact that doesn't need to be documented. Its documentation will be implicit in the audit documentation. Team is to follow the rules on any difference of opinion, paragraph 37. Monitoring and remediation, there is to be a process, and the engagement partner is to pay attention to that process. If anything comes out of that process, the engagement partner should take action. Now, the documentation section contains two requirements that refer back to Section 230, and which are unrelated to engagement quality review. Have to document matters, discussions, and conclusions about ethics and acceptance and continuance, and that's just the standard requirement. That may be something the engagement quality reviewer might want to look at. Conclusions from consultation and how they're implemented, that's really something that the EQR should not be involved in. And then finally, if the file is subject to engagement quality review, that it's done and the date. Now, that so far has actually sounded kind of funny because we haven't been very specific on what the engagement partner personally had to do. And to understand these three definitions, I think you have to first take a sole practitioner perspective where the engagement partner is doing everything a small or a local firm perspective where the engagement partner is not doing everything. You do have some staff, but the engagement partner is very involved in the audit, to a regional firm where you have regional audits, and now you're going to, by definition, have to do more delegation. You have an audit in a city or town far away from where you are, and the engagement partner cannot personally take responsibility, so we have to delegate to another partner perhaps, or another audit team perhaps. To an international firm perspective where you have hundreds of audits perhaps, hundreds of engagement partners, and many, many, many staff. So it has to be done differently. Now, in standards, the word auditor means effectively anybody. It could be the engagement partner or the firm or anyone on the team, so anyone. So where standards say the auditor shall, that means somebody shall, anyone can. An administrative staff person could. In 220 it says the engagement partner shall take responsibility for, and that just means overall responsibility. That is something that can be delegated to others by the overall engagement partner. There are only a few times where it says the engagement partner shall, and those things must be done by the engagement partner, though the engagement partner can get information from others. So if we imagine a very, very large international audit, we can imagine that the things that the engagement partner personally shall do are going to be limited by the fact that it's such a very large audit. So, shall be responsible but can obtain information from others, responsible overall but involved enough to evaluate judgments and conclusions. I don't think there can be any specific documentation of that. That will just be obvious from all the files. Ethics. So there's a series of responsibilities around ethics. Engagement partner has to have an understanding of ethical requirements. Doesn't have to have a complete or perfect understanding, just an understanding. If any threats are noticed, the engagement partner is to respond. The engagement partner is to remain alert and is to check that others are aware. Now, I think this is probably going to be implicit in the firm's documentation of policies and firm's forms. Hard to document that you remained alert. Anyway, I think that documentation will be implicit. Shall follow acceptance and continuance. It's an important thing. Determine that firm policies and procedures were followed. Take information from the acceptance and continuance process into account when doing the audit, and tell the firm of any issues. Those are all things that are in SQR1, so they're all documented there, and they will probably be documented on an acceptance and continuance form. Make sure you have enough resources for the audit, enough resources to do the audit, have a competent team, and take action if there are not enough resources or an incompetent team. Proof will probably be in the action taken or not, and probably just implicit in the audit file. You shall review. You don't have to do the review yourself. Of course, this is a large international audit and the review is being done all over the world, but you have to check that the review is done well. If you're an international firm, I'm sure you have a way of doing that. The engagement partner shall review at appropriate points significant matters, judgments, other things decided by the engagement partner, and determine that the review is sufficient and appropriate. Review the financial statements and key audit matters, and review any written communication. So I think we have some specific review requirements for the overall engagement partner to document, and those should be on a checklist or a form someplace to make sure that we don't forget. Now, the engagement partner shall consult, determine that appropriate consultation took place either with others or with those on the team, check that the party consulted agrees, and check that any conclusions reached are implemented. Now that should be part of firm policies and procedures, probably a need to conclude someplace that if there was consultation, you implemented what the party consulted suggested. Now be careful with this, because in a smaller firm I see some people saying, oh, I should consult. Well, let me decide that I'm going to consult 5 times on every audit. Well, you probably don't need to. You consult when you just don't know the answer to something. Now, kicking something around within the team, poking your head in another partner's office and saying, where's the section on this? What does that section mean? And then going, oh yeah, I get it now. Yeah, fine. That's not consultation. That doesn't require particular documentation. Consultation is a big deal. You do not know. It's really complicated. And you have to go to an expert, either inside the firm or outside the firm, to figure out what to do, because you just do not know. Engagement quality review. Now, firm policy will require that, but the engagement partner has to check to make sure that if a reviewer was needed and the person has been appointed, got to cooperate and discuss, and not date the report till done. Differences of opinion, not date the report till differences are resolved. Now this again sounds like a conclusion. Certainly there should be a conclusion on the EQR form, and perhaps there needs to be a conclusion about differences and consultation too. Again, probably no differences. Again, some people go, let's have 5 differences on every audit. If you discuss something, kick it around, oh yeah, that's the right answer. That's not a difference of opinion. A difference of opinion is where at the end of the audit, someone within the team and the engagement partner or somebody else have an absolute disagreement that needs to be resolved. Well, there needs to be a firm policy on how far up in the firm's administrative hierarchy you take that to resolve the difference. So probably there aren't going to be any, but if there is, document as appropriate. Before dating the report, now this is complicated wording. The engagement partner is to determine that the engagement partner took overall responsibility for the engagement partner's basis for judgment and involvement. And you're going, what are you doing? Why are you wording it that way? That's really confusing, and that's because they won't use a personal pronoun. Trying to avoid using personal pronouns, but it's resulted in some complicated wording. It sounds like a conclusion where the engagement partner says, I determined that my judgments and involvement was okay, and I determined that the circumstances of the audit and policies and procedures were taken into account. Sounds like a conclusion. Once the individual partner is you can use the personal pronoun I, and don't have confusing wording. So it sounds confusing, but it shouldn't be once you think about it. Now, SQM2, lots and lots of use of the word the engagement partner shall. It's rarely used in the rest of standards. It's used in the planning section, shall be involved in planning. It's used in the section where you have to let the members of the team not involved in planning know what they need to know. And something like an audit program presumably would tell everybody what they needed to know. Now, research does show that the longer the engagement partner is involved in the audit, the better. Audit partner rotation gets in the way of that and puts every 5 to 7 years, puts a completely inexperienced partner in charge of the audit. That is in fact a bad thing and has been so proven by research. But there are lots of other people, I guess, that can support the engagement partner. We see executive relationship partners now showing up and not rotating. Certainly the more the engagement partner is involved, the better. An experienced person that's been involved for a long time knows what the client's up to, so the engagement partner being involved more as opposed to less is a good idea. So is this new or not? It's mostly the same. The additional detail of the various levels, the engagement partner shall be responsible for, or just the auditor who's anyone. That's helpful for a very large firm where it would be impossible for the engagement partner to do everything the way a sole practitioner would do everything. So there's lots more words, which perhaps affects clarity, but there's really nothing new or different from before. So thanks for listening.